And welcome back, everybody. This is Pucks from the Pine Tree Pod. I'm your host, Benjamin Kennedy. Thank you so much for joining me again this evening. Happy Thursday. Getting one step here closer to the weekend, but I hope everybody's having an enjoyable one out there. And a big thank you to Maine Mariners owner Dexter Payne and broadcaster Mike Keeley for their time this week here on the podcast. I had just a lovely time talking to them. And thank you to all of you for your thoughtful questions, your comments leading up to that Q&A session. Very much appreciate that. I love how much this fan base cares about the Mariners, and it's clearly evident in your interactions with me, your interactions just with social media, with the Mariners, and all the feedback we get. So thank you all so much for that. Definitely appreciate it. Now, if you haven't had the chance to watch that Q&A session, I would ask you pause this video, go back, watch that video, and then come back and check this one out. Listen, I really appreciate Dexter and Mike's willingness, to answer really any questions that came up and answering those with openness and with candor. Really appreciate that. So, what do we think? What did we like? Are you happy with what you heard from Dexter and from Mike? Are you frustrated with what you heard? Are you hopeful for the future of the team and the future, of this organization? What are your thoughts? Leave those thoughts down below. Would love to hear from you guys on that. Some of my key takeaways here from the time with Dexter and Mike. First one is, Dexter is taking blame and taking responsibility for this season. He stated very clearly that he needs to do a better job with the relationship building with Providence and with Boston. He needs to do a better job, he stated, of showing those affiliates that Maine is a great place for development, for that player development. And we've seen it. We have a history of it with, Brazeau. Look at what Millman's done, up in Providence this year. Look at DiPietro, getting a call up to Boston, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And, pushing Providence for more of that support. So Dexter is really taking that on his shoulders and, love that. It's something that Dexter and I talked about in January about, hey, do you go to Providence and knock on the door and say, hey, we could use a hand or two up here. And, when you go back to that interview I did in January with Dexter, he kind of stated, listen, they probably don't have a lot of help to offer us, just given everything going on, with Boston, with Providence at the time. But it is nice to see that Dexter is looking to build those relationships and get a little more aggressive with those. Apologize for that cough. Um, Second takeaway I have here is, we're hearing more about these internal discussions from more of a philosophical perspective around roster construction. That's really good to hear too. Dexter very clearly referenced the Florida Everblades and how they've built their teams and all the success they're having. It's this discussion around, do we want to simply be a developmental team for the affiliates, or do we want to go out and try to build a team that can win? Can we do both? So they're having those discussions. I think that's a really positive thing to hear. Dexter also referenced the data science project they're working on with UNE from that kind of scouting perspective, and giving hopefully Maine a chance to identify, better players that are going to fit the system, find those diamonds in the rough out there. And that's really exciting. I have a little bit of a scouting background myself, so hearing that is really exciting. And the big one here from Dexter is no coaching change coming. No coaching change coming. Obviously, I've seen a lot of chatter about this on social media over the past number of weeks. When a team struggles as Maine has, the wrath always falls on the easiest target. And in this case, that target is Coach Wallin. And this happens in every sport all the time without fail. I get it. Coaches are the most visible and they're also the most vulnerable. I've never been in favor of owners with quick trigger fingers as it pertains to firing coaches. I did do a video on this back in June, I think it was, looking at all the coaching changes in the NHL. And, clearly I was pretty adamant about just my disdain for how quick organizations will move on from coaches. Listen, looking at coach's record here, he's been here for about this is his third season as a head coach. So about a little over 2.5 years in, he is 91, 86, 13-1, and has gotten the team to the playoffs in his first two seasons. And if you look historically over the past 5 seasons, Maine has been one of the most consistent teams in the North by points percentage. I believe they rank second over that time frame. So yes, a down year so far. It happens, right? These things happen. We don't have to be happy about it. We certainly shouldn't become complacent with losing. But it does happen. Sometimes all the pieces simply don't fit together the way it was planned out. And another point here, it's not like the coaches are trying to lose games or trying to do the wrong thing. And in this case this year, yeah, I get it. A lot of things haven't worked for Coach Wallin and the team. Dexter and Mike, I thought, did a great job highlighting many of the hurdles that coaches face with this roster, from that lack of help from Providence, fighting that, bigger money in Europe and losing some players there, some key injuries like Evan Vierling, and some down individual seasons for some of the players. I'm sure that, some will feel like these are all just simple excuses here, but I don't really feel that way. These are reasons the season has gone this way. And when you talk about excuses and reasons, these are two very different items here. I haven't heard anyone in the organization whining about excuses. But, again, I think Mike and Dexter did a great job of highlighting some of the actual hurdles and reasons why the season has gone the way it has. Excuse me again. Sorry for that cough. Um, You know, and, again, back to Wallin, I don't mean I really don't mean to, put words in his mouth, but, um, you know, Wallin would probably tell you that he hasn't been perfect behind the bench either. I'm sure he'd be the first to admit that. He has continued, to try, making those needed changes with the roster, making trades and signing free agents and things like that. And he has hit on some this year. I mean, listen, the McCallum trade has been a home run, right? He's a much better fit here than Patty Gay was. And listen, I've seen all sorts of comments on the socials, people complaining about the poor play and how Wallen needs to change the roster. Then the next comments I see are, why is Wallen making all these changes to the roster? You know, listen, people, you can't have it both ways. You can't blame the coach for poor play and then get mad at him for making roster changes. You just can't have it both ways. Moving on, another big takeaway that I took from the Q&A was players' needs being addressed. Um, Looking at more investment coming to improve player housing. I think that's a big, big deal, right? I mean, we know anybody living in Southern Maine knows how hard the housing market is, not just home buying, but rentals, and it's crazy out there. Southern Maine has become a fairly expensive place to live, and not enough inventory of spaces. And when it comes to, if you're a player and you're not from here, you don't have any ties to Maine. Do you want to live here, or do you want to go live in South Carolina? Do you want to live in Florida? I mean, there's a lot of really nice places in this country to live and to play hockey. You don't have to be in the cold Northeast for all of it. Listen, I love Portland. I love Southern Maine, but it's certainly not going to be for everybody. So, I think Dexter taking this approach of understanding they need to improve those options and make it better, make it more appealing is really, really exciting. And as he stated, this is all beyond the salary cap. So this is an opportunity for Dexter and the team to spend a little bit more money to, um, just make it a more appealing place for players to come. He also talked about the CBA and that renewal coming up being worked on that may lead to higher salaries. Another very exciting thing here, because this is really a problem that the ECHL has had, not just here in Maine, but I think really league wide, of losing talented players to Europe just simply because of the money, right? The money is just better over there. So hopefully the CBA will raise those minimums and will allow the salaries to improve to hopefully keep more of that talent here. I also loved hearing about the potential anyway for a new practice facility. It looks like they're on the ground levels of that, talking to people, talking to advisors and architects and things of that nature. Really, really exciting there. Again, just better amenities, hopefully down the road. I know this isn't a next year thing, probably looking more 2 or 3 years out. Um, but long term could be a great thing for the organization and a chance to hopefully attract, more players and retain more and better players here. And the last real takeaway I had is it looks like the Boston Bruins affiliation appears to be in line, appears to be moving forward. Nothing signed yet for renewal, but all indicators from Dexter is that the Bruins and Don Sweeney are happy and are committing at least verbally to renewing that. So hopefully we'll see that, as Dexter said, probably closer to the springtime. So should be interesting there. Do have some transactions to talk about for the team. Of course, we all know that Nolan Meyer was called up to Providence just recently. Anyway, we'll be curious to see how long Meyer is up there. We wonder if he does get into a game or two for Providence. I'm not sure. We know that DiPietro was called up to Boston, but that's probably going to be a short-lived thing from the looks of it. With the Four Nations going on. But good on DiPietro for at least getting the call up for some practices and Meyer, of course, that kind of trickle up effect for him getting to Providence. So again, I fully expect to see Meyer back here soon, but I do hope that he can get into a game or two up there. Be good experience for him. We also have a trade to talk about. Maine picking up defenseman Theo Calvas. Um, yeah, Calvas. Sorry about that. From Kalamazoo for future considerations. And those future considerations were part of the Gay McCallum trade with Savannah earlier on. So Calvis coming over. He is a 26-year-old, 6'5", 213-pound right shot defenseman from the state of Michigan. Numbers so far in Kalamazoo: 22 games played, 1 goal, 4 assists for 5 points, only 2 penalty minutes. So seems like a pretty efficient player out there. Probably not a big must not be a big fighter or anything, not taking a lot of 5-minute majors. So, but listen, previous ECHL stops for him has played in Toledo, Allen, Tulsa, Florida, Kansas City, and Kalamazoo. So has been become a little bit of that journeyman here in the league. But his career numbers in the ECHL: 231 games played, 14 goals, 45 assists for 59 points in that time. So listen, good size, 6'5", veteran in the league. So we'll be curious to see how he fits with the group. And hey, maybe he's someone that can be part of a new look roster for 25-26 season. So welcome in and be curious to see him out there on the ice. Hopefully, I would imagine this weekend. Just need to hit the mute button real quick here. All right. Standings right now as we sit here on the 20th of February: 17, 27, and 3, 37 points, sixth in the North Division. With Worcester losing yesterday, Maine is still 15 points out of the playoffs, again, behind number 4 Worcester. We are on a 4-game losing streak, and we are 1-9 over the past 10. So listen, I love Mike Keeley's optimism. As he stated yesterday in the Q&A, they still have a chance. He did say, he said stranger things can happen. And listen, I get what he's saying. If you're Maine right now, all you can do is take this one game at a time. You're not going to get all the 15 points back in one night. Don't look too far ahead. Just focus on Friday. Focus on that next game. Work hard. Go out and get those 2 points. But diving into the numbers here, guys, assuming that Worcester keeps up their point percentage kind of pace throughout the balance of the year. Right now, they're at a 520 points percentage. You do the math on that, they will end up right around 75 points on the season. So this means that Maine will have to play at about a 780 clip, to finish with 76 points to pass them. And that's, assuming that Worcester doesn't step it up and play. I mean, if they play 600 hockey, that means you're going to probably have to play 850 hockey to catch them. So listen, I know they still have a chance, and until the math says otherwise, they're still alive. But man, is that a tough road. And I personally don't see the playoffs as a likely outcome this season. I just think you're too far behind with only 25 games to go. Yeah, 50 points out there. You need probably 40 of those points out of the 50. So you do have 3 games in hand on Worcester, but we've been talking about this all season. If you don't win those games in hand, they really don't mean much. But Listen, one game at a time. Let's see what happens here on the road ahead. And that next game for the team will be Friday the 21st. They are down in Norfolk, 7:05 start. Same 7:05 start on Saturday the 22nd, and then they finish that series up. Matinee game on Sunday the 23rd at Norfolk, 3:05 puck drop down there. So um, can't have any more split weekends. We just can't. We need 6 points here. We got to get all three of these. You got to start banking some of these wins. Maine has played Norfolk a lot this year. Looks like 9 games, 2-6-1 on the season against Norfolk. So has not been a friendly um, kind of matchup for the team. But they did get a win that Friday night game the last time Norfolk was up here. Hopefully they can kind of get some of that magic going for themselves. All right. Right now, the Admirals are 28, 16, and 3. They have 59 points and are sitting third in the North Division, comfortably in that playoff picture. Um, Looking at just some of their key stats, we looked at these a couple weeks ago when they were up here in Maine, but their power play is at a 22.7% versus Maine at 18.4. PK actually, Maine has a bit of an advantage here. Norfolk's at 80.6%, and Maine's at 82.1. Getting a silver lining for the Mariners this year that PK has been very good. A little bit of a rough start early on, but they've really improved that unit. And they've done it despite all the defensive changes and all the players they've lost on the blue line. So I think that's been a good silver lining for the group. For the Admirals, they are fourth in the ECHL in scoring. They have 179 goals on the season versus 118 for Maine. That is tied for third worst in the ECHL for the Mariners. So tough stat there to look at. Of course, some of the key players here for the Admirals, all familiar names at this point. Brady Florent, of course, as we've noted before, Biddeford, Maine native. He has 47 games played this year, 21 goals, 36 assists for 57 points. That makes him second overall in the ECHL in points scored. So great year for Brady. Stefan Timoveyev, 43 games for him, 14 goals, 24 assists, and 38 points for him. And Dennis Smirnov, 40 games, 16 goals, 17 assists for 33 points. And at last check, it looks like forward Carson Golder has been called up to Manitoba, the AHL affiliate there for Winnipeg. And goalie Thomas Milic has also been assigned all the way up to Winnipeg, actually, got all the way to the NHL for Milic. So we'll see what comes Friday. If either of these key players are back with Norfolk for the weekend, as we know, these rosters do change rather quickly. So with Milic recalled and this I always struggle with this one, Vincentis, another goalie for them. I think he's also in Manitoba. So right now it's looking like Kristen Steed or Kristen Stead is in net for the team. 9 games played for him, 5-4 record, 2.25 goals against, and a 904 save percentage. And just today, the team did sign Taylor Joseph from the Knoxville Ice Bears of the SPHL. So it looks like Stead and Joseph in net with those other boys called up. So that's what we're looking at for the weekend. Should be a curious series. I mean, you want 6 points. I mean, anything less than 5 points out of this weekend, you're really starting to play some hard math. Trying to get that fourth spot. So in other news, of course, the Four Nations is going to finish up tonight with the U.S. and Canada for that championship. U.S. a little bit banged up. We do know the Kachuk brothers a little bit up in the air. I do believe they're both going to play, though. They've been a little bit beat up in this series. Austin Matthews looks like he's going to be good to go, too. And of course, the frustrating news is Charlie McAvoy is down with that infection that's been widely reported, and it looks like he's going to be out for weeks. So just horrible news for him. Horrible news for the Bruins. A team that is just not in a position to lose key guys at this point. Um, a lot of chatter, from Elliot Friedman and others about the Bruins being rather displeased with the treatment McAvoy received by the U.S. medical team. Um, Not sure, where the fingers have to be pointed on this one, but clearly, things did not go well there for Charlie. Hopefully, he'll recover and be fine and it won't be out for too long. But Man, the Bruins just they re to play on Saturday, and they are so desperate for every point they can get. Just a tough, tough loss. Anyway, the NHL will be back in session on Saturday. They got a 14-game slate. And of course, the Boston Bruins are going to be home against the Anaheim Ducks, 7 p.m. from the TD Garden. Another one of my favorite coaches there in Anaheim, Greg Cronin, of course, big main ties for Cronin. So we'll see how the boys play against the Ducks, a Ducks team that's been more competitive this year. Some of those young guys are starting to perform and play. So um, with McAvoy out, we don't know about Lindholm. Is he going to be out and ready to go defensively yet? We don't know. Um, but yeah, should be a good one. Should be a good one. And some sad news, unfortunately, out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Mike Lange, a legendary voice for the Pittsburgh Penguins, has passed away at the age of 76. He spent 46 years calling games for the Pens, retiring in 2021. A huge loss for the hockey world and for the city of Pittsburgh. So, serve rest in peace. We'll definitely miss that legendary voice. That's what we have for you guys today. Thank you so much. Apologize for some of my continued coughing and whatnot. I am getting better, but man, it's just still lingering here a little bit. But anyway, guys, thank you all for watching and listening. If you do like what you're hearing, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button down below. I do appreciate that. And until next time, be kind, show love, and God bless.